Okay, welcome to Module 4 of the Effortless Parenting Course. Today we are talking about parents live on Saturn and kids live on Jupiter. And let's explore what we mean by that. What we will cover today is understand that we all live in different realities in our minds. We all live in a thought-created world. And one way to explain it is that we all live on different planets while living on one Earth. And we'll go into that. And how to keep communication going between those planets. And why knowing this deeply will make it so much easier to communicate, to understand the other people, or know why we might not understand them all the time. And no real empathetic understanding towards each other as well. And stop that need to change the other person. Become more open about other people's worlds and be interested and not interesting about, meaning more like exploring about what's going on in other people's worlds and taking off that attention of your own world and how that can help it if you have any social anxiety or concerns about how do I find out more about the other people's worlds and how, yes, just interacting in a more comfortable way. Yeah. If my presentation wants to move forward, there we are. So I'm gonna read from a document that was created by Keith Blevins and Velda Monroe, who are the co-founders or co-founders with Sydney Banks, who put all the documents together for teaching purposes of the Inside Out understanding. And one of the documents is called Implications, Not Applications. There are 8 different implications of the Inside Out reality, and one observation, and separate realities is one of them, which we will read through now. So how does separate realities look like from when you're inside out, when you are 100% certain, when you are living in the 100% certain reality that all your feelings are coming from your thinking in the moment? So when you are in that reality, in the real reality, we do not waste time being dismayed that others do not think like us. This puts us in the position to respect and embrace diversity rather than be annoyed or be afraid of it. So when we know that the other person is not gonna think like us, we don't spend any time creating all this mental clutter in our head, or I wish they would think like me, or I wish they would do it like me, or I wish they would already know how I want things to be. So we can let go of all these assumptions and know that, okay, unless I only know about the other person's reality, what they've told me, and they only know about me what I've told them. So it's much easier to embrace diversity rather than be annoyed or afraid of it. We understand I actually cannot have your thoughts and you actually cannot have mine. No one can think the same as anyone else. I'm going to read that again. We understand I actually cannot have your thoughts and you actually cannot have mine. No one can think the same as anyone else. As much as I may think it would be better if you would think like me, it cannot happen. So this is the reality of the Inside Out. And this the real implication that we can drop all this unnecessary thinking we might have around people that we wish, like, oh, if they would only think like us, then we wouldn't have wars. If they would think like us, we wouldn't have problems. If they would think like us, we wouldn't have disputes. But in reality, that can never happen. Nobody can think like us. But it's not a problem when we realize this implication that we all live in separate realities, and it's actually not a problem. The not thinking like us, or them not thinking like them, it's never a problem, because that's how our reality works, and we cannot change that. So we find when we really deeply realize this implication, we find ourselves able to listen and communicate more and more effectively. And the reason why we're able to listen better is because unless we listen to the other person's reality, we don't know what's going on in their reality. We cannot guess it. We cannot read their mind. They don't think like us, so we cannot say, oh, they must be thinking that, or they must be meaning this, or they must be thinking about that. Unless they communicate it to us in whatever way they're thinking, we don't know about it. And even then, if it's not communicated effectively or clearly, the misunderstandings start happening. When we communicate in a way thinking that the other person already should know what I have thought about before, or how I think about a certain subject, unless you've discussed it before and you're continuing a conversation, they will not know your background thinking, your opinion about it, your perspective on it. That's why it's so important to have clear and effective communication. So this is what it looks like in the real reality, from the inside out. And now let's look at it, how it looks like when we're outside in. So when we're outside in, which means we are living in the illusion that our feelings and our reality is being created by something other than thought in the moment. When we believe in the outside in false paradigm, separate realities are not obvious to us. When we live in this outside in illusion that others are creating our feeling, what other people are saying or what other people are doing, it's not very obvious to us how we'll all live in separate realities, because it looks like two people having the same experience of a circumstance, which is never true if you dig deeply. Two people will always have two different experiences of the same film. Let's say two people watched a film together. At the end of it, one person comes out really liking it, the other person doesn't like it. One person took on board a certain message from the film, the other person took another message. So although it looks like two people looking at the same film would be having the same experience of it, that's not true. If you really dig deep and ask two people after they've watched the same film what their thoughts are on it, you'll always come up with different realities on it. So that just shows that there is no two people never have the same experience. But when we are outside in, it doesn't look like that. It's not obvious unless we dig deep. When others do not think like us, we think there's either something wrong with them or us. The illusion creates unnecessary outside-in thinking and reactions. So this is where what we call mind clutter starts building up. When others do not think like us, we start thinking, oh, there's something wrong with them. If they would only think like us, or maybe there's something wrong with with me, with us, with the way I'm thinking about it, but that's not the case. There is no right or wrong way of thinking. Necessarily, everybody has their own way, and thought itself is actually neutral. It's whatever we put into it afterwards that makes it into let's say, this splits it into good or bad or moral or immoral or whatever categories you want to use, but thought itself is actually neutral. So yeah, just us thinking that, oh, there's something wrong with us or something wrong with them, is a complete illusion that then creates a reaction in us, or the belief that we have to react. But actually, most of the time we don't. We stay trapped in the illusion that we could or should think and feel the same. So the key words here is like could or should. One of my teachers always, he likes to say, oh, we shouldn't all over ourselves. We think, we get trapped in this thing like, oh, we should do this, we could do this. If we could do this and think and feel the same, then this should happen. And so it's like all this cycle we get stuck in, and we get all this busyness in our mind because now we have to figure something out or create or react to something or solve something. But if we actually just take a step back and think, okay, separate realities, often there's nothing to sort out or to think about, or there might be a next action that needs to be taken, or a clear communication that needs to be made, but often nothing else can be done. Because if we go back to the previous slide, nobody can think like us or feel like us. Nobody can think or feel the same. So yeah, this was taken from that document, and it really nicely explains separate realities. Now, just is my own version to explain this further and just make it a little bit fun. So I thought like, oh, a really fun way to explore this is to just visually see how we all live on different planets. So if you imagine one planet for each of your family member. So let's say one child lives on Mercury, one child on Venus, one parent lives on Mars, one parent lives on Saturn, one grandparent lives on Pluto, one uncle lives on Neptune, one partner lives on Uranus. So whatever your family dynamics is, imagine one planet for each, and then really look at the planets. Look how beautiful they are, and look how unique they are, and look at the properties. Yeah, Saturn has rings swishing around it. So I always imagine like those people who come into the room with lots of energy, and it looks like they're spinning around everywhere. So I always put that sort of person for Saturn, with lots of dust coming up everywhere and rings being created. And then there's like a calm person who's Neptune, plain colors, whatever you see, you get. Actually, that might not be true, but there is like an outer calm. Who knows what's going on inside of them? But yeah, so, and then another person is Venus, and they're hot and fiery on the outside, yet still, yeah, they're their own person and have their own reality going on, whatever is going on within them. And the same way, like, we cannot change this exterior. In the same way, we'll go into this in the next slide as well, but we cannot change the interior much. We can influence it. We can expose them to new ideas, to new learning, like we do with our children every day. We expose them to a feast of ideas, a feast of new subjects, like Charlotte Mason, who was a great educator and teacher and professor from the 18th century, whom I'm very fond of. She said, just present your children with a feast of information and feast of idea, and let them absorb it, and let it enrich their planet in whichever way it can. But yeah, in the same way, all these planets have their own beauty, have their own uniqueness. In that way, every person that's been created has their own uniqueness, their own beauty. And I think it's amazing that we all have these differences. That's what makes life so interesting. That's why makes getting to know another person's world so exciting, because you don't know what's going on inside the world. We don't know what's happening inside the Earth's core right now. We have an idea, but really you cannot see deep inside. So yeah, I just love this picture and this example of seeing everybody as a beautiful separate planet, and just exploring each other more, like in that sort of concept that we all live in separate realities. And unless you share with me what's going on in your world, or I share with you what's going on in your world, I can only see the outside, and the outside can only tell me so much, and it's only an exterior experience. And even when we explored the idea about like not reading too much into other people's facial expressions, although our body language is a huge part of our communication, we can get too caught up in like, oh, why is my child making that moody face? I just fed them, took them to the fun fair, and they had a lot of fun, and now they're in that grumpy, look at that grumpy face. They should have that a happy face. It's like, yes, we can have that expectation, but is there any benefit to it? No. Is that teaching the child to be grateful? No. There's being gratitude cannot be forced upon the others, but who knows what's going on in the interior world at that time. Yes, they might have just had loads of fun in the fun fair. They might have just had a really their favorite meal, but we don't know what's happened on the inside of their world, and it just showed up on their face temporarily, and we start coming in from our reality. We start coming in as a Saturn, as a whirlwind, thinking, why you're not happy, why you're making that face, and but we don't know. And they're right now on Mars, and in their world they've just maybe had it could have been anything, could have been like a bad memory that's come up momentarily that has changed their mood, or they've thought a thought has flown in that changed them into whatever it was, like to make that unhappy face. But we can never know if it's deliberate, why they're doing that, or unless we go and find out, saying, oh, I can see you've had a sudden change in face, can I help, or something like that. But the point is going on is that we don't know what's happening in the inside all these worlds. We can look at the exterior, and we can make judgments and have expectations, but they won't take us far. So yeah, have fun with this. You can take it further, explore it, make arts and crafts with your kids with it, or anything like that. or explain it to them in that way, like in terms of how we all live in separate realities, and they need to let you know what's going on inside of them, because sometimes children actually have this expectation that parents already know. They should know better. They should know what's happening inside their mind, and they need to, be made aware of the fact that no, actually, unless you come and tell me that you're sad or you're angry or you're upset, I don't know. I can read your face and misread it and then make my own assumptions, or I need you to come and tell me. So yeah, that's my little example of separate realities. Learn the key to communication, keep the planets connected. So not very good at making these sort of arty stuff on PowerPoint. I'm sure can be done better, but I just wanted to just go further into this communication between people. So in your world, it's not okay to jump on the sofa, but unless this has been very clearly communicated to the child, in a child world, it's okay to jump on anything that looks fun to jump on. Now, there's also another part which comes in here, that in maybe in your home, it's okay to jump on the sofa. And that's the rule your child knows. But then when you go and visit your sister, it's not okay to jump on their sofa, but your child doesn't know the reality of her aunt unless her aunt has actually communicated that to her very clearly. So it's like, it's really, sometimes it feels maybe a bit obvious or over the top, but a key to communication with children is like, if you really want them to know, okay, it's not okay to jump on the sofa, ask them to say it back to you, especially even for older kids. I believe that's really important. And when you are actually communicating with them, be at their eye level, and make sure that you're both paying attention, like saying to them while you're washing dishes something, or make sure you don't jump on the sofa, is actually not gonna necessarily hit. And I've done that mistakes many times, and I know it didn't work most of the time. Like that's not, the message didn't stick, because when we say things casually, maybe they think, oh, it's not something actually to be taken serious. And the other thing is, there wasn't that eye contact, there wasn't that me facing them fully, and then making sure that they understood what you said as well. With very young children, it's often the case that we say something to them, we assume that they understood, but they never understood, and then they get into trouble later because, oh, I just told you this morning not to do that, and now you're doing it. So that sort of scenario. So it's just simple steps to take. Once we're very clear about separate realities, it just puts in the forefront of our mind that communication very effectively is quite useful, and saves us a lot of trouble. The others only know about about what you have clearly communicated. So the other person will only know about, should say what here, what you've really clearly communicated to them. Like I said, try to sort of explain in the example. I hope it was made sense. The next one, it's sort of going through the knowing this deeply will give you the flexibility for real empathetic understanding. Knowing that no one can think the same takes a lot of our mind, like we discussed in the earlier slides. We can just be there for the other person when needed. not having to try to figure something out or exactly need to know how they feel, because then you think like, oh, once I know how they feel, I can say, oh, okay, I know how you feel, and then say, oh, okay, then the empathy comes. No, empathy can come without you actually knowing how they feel. Empathy can be to just be there for the other person without anything on your mind and without having to dig into what's going on with them, unless there's two types of people. One person just wants you to sit with them, I found, and the other person wants to share whatever is happening. So knowing what sort of person they are makes it easier as well, in terms of, like, I know with my daughter, she doesn't necessarily want to share what's happened. She just wants someone to comfort her in that moment, and often she'll take the comfort and then leave, and then later on share in terms of what was going on, or never share. So it's also about us, for us to let go of the need to know, or to the FOMO we might have, like fear of missing out on what's going on in that moment. And but sometimes, yes, we don't need to find out, because we can drop that illusion that we need to know what's going on in order to help them. No, we can actually just help them and be there without knowing necessarily what's going on. We don't have to put ourselves in their shoes only. Only realize that they have a different reality from us, and we need to find out about it to know more. So yes, so it's like, you don't have to have that pressure, or I have to put myself into their shoes and then I will know what happened and then I will help them. No, you could just, like, if they want you to know more, find out more. If they don't want you to know more, then don't. You have to make that judgment in the moment. But yeah, you can only know what's going on with them by them communicating it to you. Yeah, applying this when you're stuck in delusion that the other person doesn't want to understand you, it's very useful. It's like when we get in this stuck in this thing, oh, they don't want to understand it, they just don't get it. Why they don't get it? Like, how I've already said it so many times in so many different ways, and yes, there are incidences where the other person just will not get it, because remember, everybody's had their own life experiences they've built their perceptions of the world on. And sometimes some people really, if they've never had that experience themselves or a similar experience, then it can really, really be difficult for them to understand it. And you can sit there explaining all day long. That's why insights are a lifesaver, because the insights come with, like, in the same way I can try to explain this inside out understanding to you, and like try everything I can, but unless you have your own insight around it, your own experience in life around it, it won't look it won't look through to you, or it won't make a difference in your life, or it won't provide those changes you actually want to happen. So it's actually quite freeing in a way, that if we've done our best to explain something to the other person and they still don't understand, and that's okay. That it's not their time to understand it, or maybe they don't need to understand it for their, like, I'm not talking about the inside out, but like any other little thing, maybe they don't need to understand it in the same way you understand it, because that's your gift, let's say. So yeah, that's just on that, understanding each family member, etc. Yeah, having that urge to change the other person, and that urge often comes to us from that basic misunderstanding again, that, oh, if the other person changes, then I'll feel better. If the other person just picks put the dishes not in the sync, then I will be better. And yeah, if they would change certain behaviors, then I will feel better. If they think like I do, or if they want to parent like I do, like this could be between partners, like, oh, if only they would change and parent the way I parent, then everything would be fine. Then my kids would turn out all right, and I wouldn't have all these things thinking around it. But know that yes, if there's two parents in the household, and they will have their own way of parenting, because now we all live on separate planets. So a person from Saturn will not parent in the same way from Mars. And only, again, communication and having certain boundaries in place, or rules, or family rules, or anything like that can obviously is obviously part of living together. But there's no point trying to force the other person to think in our way. When we know the reality of living on separate planets, just like we can't change the outside, we can't change the inside. So about the images of the planets, just as you cannot change the outer appearance of a person, you cannot change the inside. You can influence them, but not by force, only through love and understanding. We don't have to agree with them, but we want to respect their world. And I put want here because I think it's a better way to look at it than rather, oh, we should respect their world, or we have to, or we need to. Let's just put a want to it, like we want to respect the other person's world. And now it's easier by having this understanding. It's easier to see, okay, I can just let it go. I can just leave it, let them have their opinion. It's fine. Having different opinions makes conversation interesting, brings about different types of changes in the world, brings about new ideas. It's the illusion we get stuck in, that we have to make the other person agree with us, because again we have a feeling associated with it. Once they agree with us, then I'll feel happy, then I'll feel achieved, then I'll feel I can move forward. No, the other person can disagree with you all your life, and you can still do anything you want, and you can still feel all the different feelings. You will go through that anyway, because it's got nothing to do with the other person agreeing with you or not agreeing. So yeah, we want to respect their world. Yeah, so I think that was what I wanted to say about that. If anybody has any questions in between, yeah, please feel free to ask, or we're happy to stop in between as well. Become more open about the other people's worlds. Unless we find out how it looks to them, we cannot really know. So this is really, really useful when we make up this story in our head about certain disputes. That, for example, recently came across, somebody asked me, I was feeling unwell, and then another person put asked me to do something, and didn't they know I was unwell already, and there was like a lot of back and forth, and there was disputes, and but the other person, in their reality, they needed help, and they asked this they asked the other person without really finding out about what's going on in their world, or is it okay, or are you okay, are you able to do it. It was just like, again, this assumptions pattern. So unless we find out, so then it went back and forth, and there was a lot of dispute, because neither of them actually found out what's going on in each other person's realities. And so unless we find out what's going on. And it might look very simple when I did point it out, then in the end it's okay, that's actually really simple. I never really thought about that, asking the other person of how it looks to them, or did they even realize that I was unwell or anything like that. So yes, it is really crucial to find out what it looks like to them. How does the world look to them? What's going on in their reality, really? Not just surface level, but what's really going on. Not everybody can be intuitive and know what you want, or know what you need. We often have this expectation from partners or family members or children, or the children have it from us. They think we should know what's going on with them. We should know what they need, or our partners should know that, we're tired now, and or we're just not feeling too good and we need to have the help. No, you have to communicate it. Not everybody is intuitive, and kids are often not aware of whatever's going around them. They will just they'll just come in the middle of you trying to sort out the worst problem in the world, or whatever it looks like to you in that moment, and they'll just come in bouncing and jumping and asking something of you, and then get stuck in the middle. It's really quite somebody asked me actually, that in terms of this separate reality, it's like they gave me an example, like he was like needs to start working. Obviously everybody was at home and the laptop is not turning on, and I've got to start a meeting, and then the wife was calling from the kitchen, did you buy the milk last night? And I thought, no, I didn't. And so she was like saying something about that, and then the older daughter comes in, I've got problems with my laptop. And so everybody had their own problem. You can see the wife, she had the problem of the milk wasn't there, so that was her reality. Then the brother was asking, he's saying he couldn't turn his laptop on, so that was his reality. He needed to get online and his laptop wasn't working. And his daughter's reality was that she had some technical issues, so that was whatever is going on for us in that moment, that looks like the most important part for us, the most important thing in the whole world, because we are the only one on that planet. We are the only one living in our world. So it looks like the most important issue going on. And unless you're very intuitive, and we learn that over time, like seeing that, okay, dad seems to be very busy with his own issue, maybe I shouldn't disturb him right now. The child will just come in and ask you, and then this whole situation gets out of control. But if you really, really take a step back in that moment and remember and live this reality, that okay, actually nobody is doing anything necessarily deliberately here. They're not deliberately trying to make things difficult. It's that in their reality, whatever's going on for them looks important. So knowing that, we can just move forward in a much calmer, in a different way. Just say, look, right now I cannot deal with any of your problems, and that's it, rather than going down the explosion way. So you got a question here. Can boundaries be really respected if you don't convey it to people without? Yes, definitely. You can convey, actually, when you convey boundaries without anger, without manipulative emotions, let's say, like without threatening, without all these emotions we often attach to having to convey boundaries, and we make it very clear and concise, and even put consequences to it. The other person, whichever way they take it, it will stick with them. It actually will stick with them. because when you do it in an emotional way, let's say you express your boundary in with anger, all they will remember is that you were angry. They won't actually remember what you've told them, or they will remember less of that. They will remember more of your emotion that you associated with it, and less of what was actually the content. So the emotion becomes bigger and the content becomes small, while you want to make the content the big and have neutral emotions around it. I hope that made sense. We can talk about it a bit more as well in the Q&A. Yeah, never assuming that the other person should know better makes our life easier. Like, never assuming that the other person should already know, or they should know better, in terms of yeah, to know. Well, I'm glad that made sense. That's good. Never assuming that a person should know better makes our life easier. So I've done it myself. Like we often do it with our kids, or I've done it that, oh, they should know better now. That 10, we associate age with having to have certain experience or expectation, but that's not the case. It depends on each child, what experience they've been through. And so, yeah, never assuming that the other person should know better makes our life easier, because just assume that they don't know better right now, and tell it to them, communicate it to them effectively, clearly, calmly. Yes, tell them the content of the boundaries, and don't communicate your emotion. And if you are in an emotional state where you think you won't communicate it rightly, then wait till you've calmed down and then communicate it. Yeah, make it very clear if your boundary is crossed, but by communicating only, this actually answers that question as well, when in a calm and quiet mind state. Because if you're not in a calm and quiet mind state, as we just mentioned, is that you will communicate your emotion, but you won't communicate the content. Yeah, communicate when you are inside out, when you are seeing it very clearly, like we like to say it. So when you're not in the illusion that first of all, by setting the boundaries, it'll make you feel better. No, that's not what's going to happen. Boundaries are just for boundaries' sake. When that if you communicate it with anger or with other emotions attached to it, it will be more effective. That's also not the case. It is literally the most effective way is like to be in a quiet, calm state. Really think about it. What do you want to bring across? How important is this boundary to you? Or is it even important anymore? Or was it just important in that moment of anger? Or was it just important in that moment of getting back at someone? Or was it just important in that moment of when you thought you had to defend yourself? Because defending ourselves comes from our ego. And the ego lives in the illusion. The ego is the illusion. It's really, sometimes we believe that there are certain boundaries that should be set and we should have, but when we calm down and we think about them in the quiet mind state, they don't seem relevant to us anymore. You might have had experience like where you've set certain boundaries for the kids out of anger, and then later on you thought, oh, why did I do that? That doesn't make any sense. So yeah, things like that happen as well. The last part before we wrap up is be interested and not interesting. When having to face new people or new situations, take the attention of yourself by taking interest in the other person's world. So now having this hopefully image of all different planets in your mind. You can go into a big room, even if it's like not something you like doing or out of your comfort zone, or know that, okay, today I can explore about so many different worlds, and actually you don't have to, the other people don't have to, I don't have to feel that I have to share if I don't want to. I can just be interested in the other people and keep it that way. We might, yes, again, we might avoid conversations because we don't want to feel a certain way. But there is no way, no certain way we know we'll ever feel. You'll never know how you might feel in any given situation. In any given situation, you can feel in any different way, although we create these predictable patterns, and that's why we like to stick with what we know, because we believe that when we stick with what we know, we can predict how we feel. But that's not how it works. We know that moment by moment, our thinking, feeling can change, regardless of if you're now going through the same situation you've been through hundreds of times. So it's interesting to explore. So yeah, explore and be free to live your life to the fullest. No need to be scared of any emotions that come and go. So that concludes Module 4. Just quick on what we'll cover next week. How to be your child's hero, be emotionally accessible at any given time. Silence the voice in your head and never create that voice for your children in the first place. Let go of the innocent trap of, if they listen to me, all will be well and okay. Create a lifelong connection that's not based on outward behavior but mutual respect. So that we'll cover next week. And I also wanted to ask anybody that's here. So the 6th module was a bonus module, and I have some idea what I might want to cover, but I'm actually quite interested to see anybody has any other ideas or any other parts they like me to cover. Then I'd love to know. Yeah, maybe we can discuss that in the final module. So yeah, any questions, insights about today, or any questions even from the last modules, and any ideas for module 6? Love to hear. Yeah. Did it, Sajida, did your question about the boundaries is clear to you? Can we talk about handling the teenage starting? Okay, is that Abi? Are you saying that for the module 6 idea?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. That. So you do mean like kids start?
When they start, when they start going into teenaging.
Yeah.
You know, they have these different feelings, and how can we support them and move easily in this state, in this, when they are in this position, and how can we manage our feelings that time?
Okay, inshallah, I'll think about it. If I can do something on that. Okay. Yeah, Jazakallah for your idea. That's
Thank you.
A good one. Yeah. Anything else? Did you have any questions about today, or any insights you've had from?
No, up till now I'm trying to manage with the things we took. And I hope it's going on, but since they are going through the secondary schools and teenaging and things like this, so I'm facing other kinds of challenges, and I think I have to be aware of it.
Okay. Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. Inshallah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, sister. Thank you for today's presentation. Yeah. One insight or one thing I'm taking away mostly is the fact that we all live in different planets.
Yeah.
And I think that's really going to help me to have a more peaceful home, especially with my second half, my better half. Because most of the time, you know, in my head, you're thinking, because of your love for the children and for your husband, and you in my head, I'm thinking, this is the way I want to parent my children, and this is the way I think is the best. I think I want us to be calm, and I'm then trying to make him think the way I'm thinking to, you know, and sometimes he's trying, but sometimes we'll all have this friction, and he's feeling, oh, he's trying, and he doesn't have to be the way I want it. Yeah. And yes, but just listening to that presentation, I was like, okay, I think I've learned something today, a great thing that will really help me to kind of like step back and accept that we're all in different planets, and to communicate more with each other, but not always trying to make him change, trying to make him build the way I am. And I can't really you can't force someone else to have the same thoughts and feelings as you. So that's a big weight.
Yeah, that's a big, mashallah, insight you had.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, we'll make it easy and bring loads of ease in your life through this. Harmony. That's what the main part is, like, how can we live in harmony together?
In harmony, yeah, accepting each other's differences, and you know, yeah. So jazakallah khairan.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That made my day. So that's amazing. Yeah. Anything else? Otherwise, yeah, we can wrap up here, and see you all next week, or inshallah. Okay. If there's no more questions, etc. Yeah, thank you, Sajidat, for letting me know. That made sense. That's great. And yeah, take care. Have an amazing week, and I'll see you all soon.
Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.